one hero isn't enough. Many will answer the call. They are the legends of tomorrow. And who else is worthy to tell the tale but the podcast of tomorrow? That's right, people. I am your host, Time Master Zachary Hare. And with me, as always, is Time Pirate Charlie Esser.
Hello. Arg. I'm a time pirate now. I'll work with it.
All right.
Get me some booty.
No, too many jokes here, and we have kids listening. And anyway, so of course we're talking about episode 2, which clearly takes right off. Now, from right off the bat, we see they made some changes that are obvious. A couple of the members of the Justice Society are African, or really not even just African American. Vixen is African, because I've looked it up. I believe that's supposed to be her the one we know. It's her grandmother.
Ah, okay.
I don't know if that's confirmed, just what I was able to find online. Which maybe I should go back and watch the anime series to see if that makes sense, because I'm not sure that it does. But
well, I think it's from what I've read already, it is a new version of Vixen. So this is one we haven't seen before.
I'm saying
it's also not the Vixen we've seen in the modern.
I'm saying that's era. The one we met in Arrow. That's her grandmother. So
yeah.
There's a couple. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, I've looked it up, and they said to the other guy's name that is indeed Obsidian, and it looks to follow his spot, which is interesting because he had his moment. Now, I think it's worth mentioning he doesn't talk, and if you look at his backstory, that could be an implication that they're following it too, because he had major issues in his life, because he was a villain for a little while too.
Well, you know what I find most fascinating about that? If they are going to follow this idea that he is Alan Scott's son, then that means that much like the current DC cinematic universe, they're bringing the dawn of metahumanity to World War I, not World War II, which is an interesting choice, and it'll be very interesting if they follow it. See if we do get that Alan Scott World War I flying ace, or World War I actually was an architect.
Well, actually,
who knows what they're going to do?
Because with this episode, it establishes metahumans, like you said, in World War II.
Well, that was actually one of these questions. I mean, yes, we do have humans in World War II. The Commander Steele, is he metahuman in this, or just like your classic Melinda May? Nick Fury,
that he was like
just super
human. It seems like it just very. I think everyone's gonna say he's very similar to Captain America.
Yeah, it's like so for you have Rick Flag,
right,
in Suicide Squad, who's just the best of the best, and you do have this long history of the best of the best of the best heroes in work superhumans. Batman being the most obvious modern. And I wasn't, because when I first watched this, I thought they gave serum to Commander Steele, and that creates this genetic line to his grandson. But then I realized on the second watch, oh no, they gave it to his grandson. They give the formula to him to heal him. Which makes me wonder: was there already something in Steel line that was superhuman, or were they just like the best of the best? But the grandson had hemophilia, and that's why he didn't join the family business. Punching Nazis or commies in the jaw.
Well, it's hard to say because. I mean, it looks to me, well, it's something we could talk about. Yeah, he does seem to get away with certain things, saw a scratch, but it did seem like he was somewhat mortal, but they were, I don't know, maybe they were being intentionally vague because of it.
Yeah, well, intentional vagueness is the stuff of fantasy.
Yeah, and time travel, really.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. Okay, so shall we get meat and potatoes of the
we could spend the whole time just talking about the Justice side, because a few of these characters they use for the it's something you can do since comics have been around so long. Most of these characters were not in the original Justice Society and weren't even in 40s comics.
Well, no, I mean, obviously Obsidian isn't, and of course isn't here either.
Well, but what I'm saying is, I mean, Stargirl was a late addition to DC Comics when compared to the others.
Mm-hmm. No, it should be Starman.
Well, Star
is the
Star Girl. I know. I'm aware of. Although I'm wondering if they're going to have her sidekick of I forget what he comes himself in a suit. Oh, Stripe.
Oh, yeah, Stars and Stripey. Yeah. Well, you know what? But again, this goes again to this idea that if we put the dawn of metahumans at World 1, then you do have maybe her. Although really, the gap between World War 1 and World War 2 is very small. It's like less than it's about 1918 to 19. Well, really, 1928 is when really.
Well, it's interesting because she has time traveled, and her parents were killed in the comics by Perdegaton. So there's so much I don't know if they're gonna. We'll maybe find out in which direction they're gonna go as we continue on. So, and obviously we have Dr. Midnight played by looks like a black actor, and he seems to have his original powers that he sees in the dark, and so that's why he was able to see what was going on around him. Although I gotta say, right from the start of the episode, the music with the fight scene, that was so comic book.
Well, we are going back to the 40s. You're going to have, there was a great time travel episode of Deep Space Nine where they talk about how it's the episode where they go back to the Trouble with Tribbles episode. Yeah, there was this whole conversation about how they had to completely change their fighting style because in the 60s, how you did TV fightings were these broad right hooks. Whereas in our modern you do much more looking things, not actual martial arts, of course, but you do things that like martial arts, and how they had to do this completely different method to get because they had to be genre correct while they were doing it, and so you're going to have that comic booky music because they're trying to invoke that golden age feel.
Right. So, I just thought it was a very good. The fight with the music was it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon in a good way. So I very much enjoyed it.
My favorite thing is when Stein tells the band to before he sings Edelweiss to watch for the changes and try to keep up, which of course is from Back to the Future before Michael J. Fox plays Johnny B. Good. Here it's
we're going to talk about that too. Now, what's interesting, which is weird that they kind of made it sound like Stein threw the first punch, but it was Steele, before asking questions, he threw the first punch. I thought that was a interesting way to go.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, it's and of course, there's poor, I'm trying to remember the character's name. It's Jackson, correct?
What you mean?
The African American member,
Jackson,
half of Star, Jackson. He says, "Oh, sure, you get to punch him," which is, this to me is the biggest problem with Legends of Tomorrow, is that someone decided the best character to put in this was Firestorm, who is not only a Superman pastiche, but a highly CGI required character. And when you're in a series like this where you don't have that CGI budget, to push CGI characters when you don't need to, when you think of all the different characters you could put on this show that don't require massive CGI, it's such a strange choice to use characters that like Firestorm, who you just, as a result, wind up not using. So when we do get, Attack of the Christmas Town Nazi, Attack of Toy Story Nazi, Attack of what was it? It wasn't Universal Soldier, Small Soldier Nazi. Remember
yes,
that?
I remember
that movie, Small Soldiers? Yeah, some classic CGI there, and there they were supposed to look like they were made of plastic. The idea that, this would be a perfect time to have our Superman pastiche, who can fly, has superhuman strength and energy projection powers, also the power to reorder any tools into any structure that they wish, which they don't use enough, I think.
We got that, Billy, the end of last season, finally.
Yeah, well, yes,
I know.
have,
Well, they finally because they're like he was just a Human Torch until that point, and he even said "flame on" in an episode of Flash, which just made me groan. But yeah, what I'm seeing, and it is true, the budget does hurt it sometimes. But I think they do all, and we'll get to Berserker Claymation Zombie. So they, I did like because the idea, because the Justice Society really are soldiers, so they're a well-oiled machine. So as good as the legends are, you put them next to the Justice Society, they look like a bunch of amateurs. Right,
they are amateurs. Although this is the classic American ideal of the amateur being able to do things that the professional can't, because the amateur is going to find the way that the professional doesn't think of. This, of course, leads to all sorts of conversations that Malcolm Gladstone would love to have a conversation with you about. Malcolm Gladwell would love to have a conversation about, because Malcolm Gladwell absolutely believes in the power of the professional. But we, as storytellers and story enjoyers, like the tale of the amateur who succeeds, because we're all amateurs and we really, really want to succeed. But in truth, it's really the people who focus and work hard who do the best. Although one can make the argument that every member of the Legends focused and worked hard in their specific fields. They just have to learn how to be a team. So Rory's a really good criminal, and White Canary is a fantastic assassin.
Well, I did like when she's like, I'm a criminal. She's like, he's. I know what's funny is the criminal and the assassin are probably the two most honest people in the team, which is an interesting side effect. And of course, we got this last season. We get even more of Stein's ego. I mean, it just got padded this episode, because our man's it's like Jack says later on, it's because you're older and white, and this is the 40s, and it's just, but Stein just embraces it.
Well, of course, because this is the heyday for old white men. I mean, this is 40s. You're a white. Look at Einstein last episode. You're a white-haired physicist in 1940. You got ladies for days. This was the golden age, both figuratively and literally. But of course, and again, this is this. It was honestly the closest they got to touching on that very complex concept of the unpleasant racial dynamics of the 1940s, and 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s.
I think we could just say it's been a rough ride for certain people for time, but
we're a white straight male. Yeah. It's been a rough day, but hey, time to change.
Yeah, so we see from they're trying to, and we find out more about Rex Tower's warning. Later on we'll find out more about that. He's like, I've never met you, I have no idea, but we also see that he faded out. Although here's something I think we can infer upon, but I gotta wonder, how did we still don't know how he time traveled in the first place.
Well, I mean, if you want to jump to the end, I mean, I think this is the. Okay, so my theory is as to what Reverse Flash Edelbard is, which is a weird name.
It's a weird future name. It's not that old.
Okay, well, it's a weird name. No, I don't think Edelbard is a future name. That sounds like one of those names people had in like the medieval times, and that's not Muhammad Ali. That's a future name, A white guy named Muhammad Ali in the future. I totally see that. That makes perfect. A guy named Edelbard. That's like I'm not quite sure about that. But anyway, so Edelbard. What I think his whole thing.
Are you calling him Edelbard? No, it's Eobard. Is that not
his name? What is his name?
Whoa!
Eobard. Sorry for the extra L.
Extra L. There is no L.
Yeah, well, the L.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna save Charlie from himself, and we're gonna move on. So they talking to I did like how it wasn't. They didn't take them too long to believe. Like, you're time travel, you're in the same way. And he shows him the dog tags, and
yeah.
he shows them the tags, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, this." He thinks that only he would know, so they start to believe them. I really do like how they didn't spend too much time on that. But and also, I think this could be a little hint. With that in mind, it makes a lot more sense to me that Haywood knew who the legends are, because if his grandfather met them.
Although, well, see, that's an paradoxical question. Had his grandfather met them prior to them going back in time, because of course,
someone's getting a time travel headache.
There's two views of time. Yeah, well, no, there's two views. No, there's basically two views of time travel. One is overall time, which suggests that the future and the past both exist in a static state. Even with the idea of alternate futures, there is a static state of time, which means that if you go from the future to the past, you were always meant to go from the future to the past. Now, when you go from the future to the past, you may create an alternate timeline, one where you succeed in your task and one where you don't, but the whole point is that a universe exists in which you went back in time and created a timeline where you succeeded. By contrast, there is this idea that time is not static, and every time you move back or forth, you're going to cause changes. DC right now, within their structured timeline, within at least the CW11 universe, seems to operate within the idea of the line with alternate universe. So all universes start in the past, but upon each level of universe, it's a single timeline. So that if you alter the past, you don't create a new timeline, you destroy a future timeline. Which is fine as a theory. And this is why, of course, when you have essentially similar to the back to church structure, which is that you go back in time and you make change, things start to disappear. And of course, and this is the important thing, because this is the exact physics of Back to the Future, the thing that is closest to the past, the dog tags, disappear before the thing that is later in the past, the person.
Right, well, it's like, because it's like that sort of thing. So they convince them that we'll go handle everything, but then it happens with the dog tags. So I decide. Now, there's actually something that they didn't really address. He's like, Vixen even says, how do you know you coming back isn't what killed him and it killed us? And it's like, and it's a very obvious answer, because they didn't disappear till we left.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Like I said, it's see, and here's what I'm going to say, and this is what I'm going to say. Dynamics are pretty spot on. In the sense that they're being consistent in their temporal dynamics. We have to watch that. Now they do have they're working Back to the Future temporal dynamic, which allows you to have a point of cause that will ripple forward and will take time to ripple forward, even as you're moving back and forth. So because my point of causality is in the past, it's going to take a period of time for that to lead to effect 1, effect 2, effect 3, effect 4, effect 5, get to where I was.
One kind of a pain in the ass thing that this universe does with time travel, especially with the Flash, is they're very picky about when memories, because half the time they can change the timeline and no one's memories change.
Well, the idea is that when I'm guessing, and this goes into a more non-scientific, but what you might call a metaphysical understanding of reality. That essentially, this is the deja vu principle. You recognize that things have changed because there is a psychic awareness that as physical reality changes, spiritual reality has a consistency. So in a magical universe, that mystical energy, that psychic energy, continues on. even as physical reality changes. This is why, as a fun point, you could come into, say, a universe where the Nazis won the World War I or World War II, and everyone is a Nazi, but you could still find someone who was a hero in that universe and convince them to be heroic. Because psychically, they're still that heroic person from the start of it. You see that, if you want to get into the comic book variations, you see that in the way that they have Wonder Woman and Superman in the Red Sun universe.
That was a good alternate take on it. But from here, we also see Victor gets to show off his singing talents again.
You know, the man, the special skills in his on his resume. So he'll use them.
I know, of course, this one was Australia, and when he said that, like, well, I'm not sure exactly. I know, obviously, Sound of Music came out, then I'm not sure when it was. Obviously, it was written way after that, but I was just like, I still can't get over it. By the way, I've looked up Max Lorenz. He doesn't look a thing, and he was a real singer, and he doesn't look a thing like Victor Garber, not even close.
No, and I was not quite understand why that was an infiltration option.
But apparently Nazis don't take much. It's just, hey, I'm Max Lorenz, come on in.
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, I mean, that is some A-Team Faceman level con artistry there.
I did look it up. He was actually the part they actually got historically right. He was Hitler's favorite singer.
Yeah, I'm well, thank goodness for that. I mean, but then you know, not for nothing, you'd think he might be a little more famous in, Vichy Paris at the time.
Well, it could be believable that certain people, because, obviously it's not the digital age. There's not pictures of him all over the place at that point. So it is believable.
Well, they did have pictures.
That's true. That's true. I know. It's just,
it's like right now, I'm a big fat white guy. I can't go into a concert and say, "Hey, I'm Meatloaf Adele. Let me sing." And, whoa, Meatloaf's here! Great. It's not
funny.
Something I can pull off.
You pick him. I literally just met him yesterday.
He's. I imagine he's a wonderful person.
You expect this big, mean, angry, large-than-life guy, but he's kind of sweet, actually.
Oh, I absolutely imagine Meatloaf Adele is just the sweetest guy you'll ever meet. I mean, I'm sure he's, first off, he's a musician, okay? Which means that at some point in life, he was a fat nerd kid. Yeah, I mean, he was a big guy, so and I believe he played football and things like that, but he was a nerdy kid. He liked music, he wanted to play music, and he eventually got to play music. And that's his story. And, you don't do that if you're a horrible person. Very rarely do you achieve a great deal of fame, especially if you're a fat guy.
You're speaking to the choir on that one. But yeah, it's cool to see that. Now, in the one thing I was curious about, Vixen uses her powers, but I didn't see the amulet ever. And two, here's something I want to talk about. Because the Vixen we know in the comics was supposed to be the first one, and now they're saying that maybe her grandmother did it too. There's one thing that is a bit of a mistake in my opinion. The whole reason she calls herself Vixen is because she's a superhero and a fashion designer. When you think about it, there's no reason for her grandmother to call. An African woman in the 40s is not going to call herself Vixen.
She might have been a fashion designer in the 40s.
We don't know that. Okay. And have absolutely, even though she probably grew up in Africa, have absolutely no accent. So anyways.
First off, they have
I know they have fashion in Africa.
Secondly, I mean, I wouldn't call it shelter effort and trenching tool. This is the 40s, okay? Even if she had grown up in Africa, if she'd grown up in the cosmopolitan centers of Africa, which there were many, whether you're in Timbuktu, the center of learning for centuries, or whether you're going in, I don't want to say Johannesburg, but let's say, what's the capital of
okay, anyway, we're getting off topic with the geography.
Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of places where an African woman might have, if she was, 5 times smarter than every man and every white person
that could be from Vixen's grandmother.
Yeah, which could achieve a certain level of success, which of course made every white person every white person and male feel good about themselves. That well, we can't possibly be racist. Here's this woman that we're allowing to be in this.
Yeah, I don't think there was much of that in the 40s. So, but another thing about that, although speaking of Vixen, she's kind of a jerk to Ray. It's like, I keep. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, so I guess we could forgive that. So we also find out that Dr. Haywood's actually hemophilia, so which is, it was the reason why. Now, it's interesting because that they're doing this, because I believe, I think in the original comics he got his leg removed or something.
I would know. I don't know enough about.
Well, no, that's not Citizen Steel. His grandson. It's DC, so it's really hard to keep track.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that of course is it. That is both its weakness, absolute strength in the television and movie universes. Is they can really come up with anything and just say, well, no, this is just a different version of it. Because as someone pointed out in the 1960s, they had a Hispanic Joker. And an African American.
Wait! Back up! What?
In the 1960s, there was a Hispanic Joker and an African American.
I don't remember this.
Catwoman. You never watched Batman?
The show. I think it meant the comics. I was like, what?
No.
I
Cesar
know
Romero
that. I know the show. Yeah. Okay.
And of course, Eartha Kitt, who, in my opinion, the best Catwoman ever.
Nope, the best Catwoman is Adrienne Barbeau.
Well,
the voice in the animated series.
Oh, okay.
A lot of us want to just... Okay, so now, we could talk all...
Okay.
We keep veering off of Justice Society, because, any incarnation of Justice Society is just an awesome... But, I mean, we'll see where we go with that. So they find out, again, there's more... Stein's like, and I did like the Godfather reference from Jack saying wartime singularity, because it is true. You need someone different in peace, and Stein eventually capitulates. Although it's interesting that I think earlier Jax was going to suggest Sarah, and Sarah, it looks like at first, didn't want the responsibility.
Well, no, because that is not an uncommon trope for the person who really should be the leader to nominate the person who they make the leader. That's pretty standard, in fact, and the reason why is the idea that the person who wants to be the leader should never be the leader. Which is of course the worst problem all leadership structures, because anyone that wants to be the leader has so much hubris as to automatically disqualify themselves for leadership roles. However, if someone does not step to I want to be the leader, you will never have a leader. So you have that catch-22. It's great when someone like Washington can achieve a leadership role by popular acclaim, but very few people are ever going to achieve that level of popular acclaim to just be declared leader unless someone is actively trying.
Now, I tried to look up this Askaran amulet. I don't think that's from the comics, but looking at it, it looks like something. In my opinion, it looked like a watch. So I'm guessing it's going to have something to do with the time travel later on. And we also find out we already always knew that of course Eobard's the time bandit that's screwing stuff, but we still don't know. I mean, there's so many Eobards that go through this, so we have no idea. But he gives them a little sample of the serum, which turns into everyone's favorite character. Although I like Berserker Nazi, I think that's a good enough title for him.
He's so much more than a berserker. Well, here's this actually interesting. So now we know that Eobard went to because here's this question. Because I'm watching it, it's like, so we've had 2 episodes so far set in the 1940s. We know we're going to have another episode set in the 1940s because Sergeant Rock.
I can't wait to see that.
But here's this question. Do we know if Eobard was the time travel maker in Louis XIV France?
I think it's implied.
Well, it's implied, but do we know that? Because I was starting to, because that's what I'm wondering. What if he's stuck in the 1940s for some reason? Because he keeps on going back to the 1940s, and aside from the obvious budgetary reasons to do so, we already bought the dang costumes. What if his character what if that's his problem, is that when everything reformed after, Barry Allen ran back in time to remove his Uncle Ben moment, because that makes sense. Well, I guess it makes sense on a certain level, but it should have been obvious. It didn't cause all sorts of problems. Honestly, I'm real mad that he doesn't have more problems. Honestly, he should be a freaking layabout hippie. It's like, what, science? Why would I study science? Ooh, I work at the gas station because mom and pop take care of me. That's honestly what I
thought it a weird choice that the serum for the Nazi wears off. Like, the implication, I think, if I'm right, is that he only took a little, so he only transformed full, because he has more later on.
Oh, I actually thought that he was kind of
before every time he transforms, you see him inject himself. So I mean, there's so many, because I don't know, it ties in. So of course, Stein loses it, and he has to. That's when he makes their team. The Ray and Vixen get captured, and we have the whole naked talk. It's like, oh god. So big surprise.
So I'm actually going to headcanon that for you. What Eobard did was he put in the formula he gave the Nazis a bit of a designed in obsolescence. Essentially, the idea is that the formula that he gave has an automatic trigger to turn it off. When Ray looks at it and says, well, why do you have this trigger here? And he reformulates it to make it so, well, okay, let's not have you turn into a berserker, so we'll part. And let's not have it turn off, because why would you want to lose your super soldier serum? So the formula he gives to, I'm forgetting Steele's.
I just call him Dr. Haywood. I think it's Nathan.
Yeah,
but...
Dr. Steele. Nathan. Yeah, the formula he gives to him, is the perfected formula. That's only perfected because Eobard had actively thwarted it, which again goes to my idea that Eobard doesn't necessarily want to help the Nazis. He doesn't want to help anyone. He just wants to mess up. Well,
obviously we find out more about the layer. So one thing, I really like the scenes with Commander Steele and Haywood, because we find out. I mean, I thought he was avoiding him because, he's like, oh, I know the day of your death, I know your future, but no, it wasn't even that at all. It's because he just sees himself as a regular guy. He wants to do what's right. He doesn't want to be seen as the symbol of the country, the big hero, and that kind of thing. And that's the reason he was avoiding him. And I thought that was a really cool avenue to explore, different than what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, the mark of a good show is that they do explore avenues that you weren't expecting. I think that is, and again, this goes to this idea that we had said, the person who is the leader, who wants to be the leader, is the worst person to be the leader. The guy who wants to be the hero, which speaks to both the Ray Palmer problem and again the Nathan Steele problem, which is the idea that these are people who want to enter this world, and when you are a White Canary or a Vixen for whom that power has bequeathed a great deal of responsibility, or even a Commander Steele, you're just like, dude, you don't even understand. You think this is the dream. Trust me, it's not the dream. This is waking up every night screaming for the people you've killed. This is and that's the thing, I mean, the PTSD that a superhero probably experiences, from both those they've loved who died and those they've had to kill. Well, it's only the past 20 years in comics that they've even begun to explore that in superheroes. But so that's one of the good things about taking old characters in the new age, because you can explore things that not even, obviously, you can have black JSA members, and it's funny thing is most people are like, it's completely believable
that the government would allow metahumans, one, any means necessary to win the war, which is very common back then, and two, it's even more likely considering it's a secret fighting force. Now, I'm not sure, see, I mean, they're not really clear on where they're, what the power is, but it doesn't, I'm hoping we even get metahumans in another time period, but it all depends how long they spend in the 40s. But one thing that happened, I thought it was one thing, like when the Berserker Nazi attacks. See, I think that Commander Steel has some powers, but he's not invulnerable because he seems pretty durable, but he does run from the Baron because he doesn't face him head on, so he's not completely invulnerable. Although one thing I find funny, he runs away. You could say he's leading him off, but it's like, all right, Dr. Midnight, on your own.
Yeah,
but I know that's not what happened. It's just funny that way. Now, one thing that I understand was a plot device, but I just love when Haywood helps his grandfather escape the bonds, and once the Baron is blown up, they just stop. It's like no, don't stop. You're still in the bombing area. Keep going. But I think this could be another hint toward if Commander Steel has any powers, because I mean, obviously, Haywood's hemophilia makes him more vulnerable. But still, it looks like Steel doesn't have a scratch on him. Just was knocked out.
Yeah.
I think they're being intentionally vague with some of the heroes. But we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and it could be this. You see, this is this idea that if there is this, it's like what powers would Captain America's son have? Kind of ideas like that. So. Commander Steel maybe has some early super soldier serum in him, which again, it's this running gag. I think where they are trying to sort of throw some shade at Marvel, where you have Ray Palmer, where they keep on referencing him as being just a billionaire in a suit, and then here it's like what do they call it? The super serum. A little on the nose, isn't it? And sort of, which is sort of throwing shade at the Captain America, except with his super soldier serum. It is this, but the idea that maybe Commander Steel does have some early version of that might get passed down. And maybe even, in one of these weird ideas that, even that, whatever alterations that Commander Steel grew that he passed on to his child, and then his grandchild, possibly in his grandchild is what causes his hemophilia. And then when the updated formula is given to him, that's why we get this much more dramatic transformation that we're going to see, where he basically gets a metal skin.
I'm curious to see if they're going to let this be what turns him into Steel. Oh God, no! Oh God, please tell me they call him Man of Steel.
No, well,
you're like a Man of Steel.
Well, they've already got a Man of Steel in the universe next door, at least.
Well, we'll see where they go with that. So they all saved it, everyone's fine, but then we see that. Oh, now tell me I'm wrong. When they put away Askran amulet, I swear to God, I saw Wonder Woman's gauntlets right next to it.
Oh, those kind of
well, you
details
can barely see them, but they look like gauntlets, and so who knows? But
see, I still have a low definition television, so I have no idea half the things that go on. It's like every time that someone says, "Oh, and you saw they had my uncle's helmet there," I'm like, "Really? How do I miss that?" Although I'm so mad that you don't get. They've been teasing my uncle. Oh, the Red Tornado for so many years.
They had him on Supergirl. They didn't really get him completely right, but hopefully he comes back.
No. That's Silver Age Red Tornado. I'm talking Tornado. My uncle, who had
I think I saw the helmet
hot on her head. Yeah, they keep on having the helmet again and again and again. They had it on Smallville. They've had Legends. I think they might have even had it on Arrow or Flash. But the idea that they keep on teasing this character, they never bring her forward in this. The way that you would do the idea of a single mother living in the ethnic Irish ghetto, sort of taking on with her mom's strength, beating the heck out of various local loan sharks. They've never had the character be brought forth the way you could in a modern context, and I've been waiting for that. They keep on teasing it. And part of me, I think, just thinks they're afraid to actually cross the line into because Red Tornado was like very much a comedic character in the way she was presented. Although there is this real interesting way that if you just take her tagline story, you could present it. So I always miss these things. I have to. I'm sure there were all sorts of wonderful items or eggs in the location. But now here's what I think is important. In that scene, after does Eobard steal the amulet? Yeah, amulet. Amulet. So because I'm
guessing it looks kind of device to me.
Yeah, he kills, of course, Our Man. And winning Our Man, except that the timeline, if Eobard goes, he was supposed to go to the future to tell the legends. This is my thing. I think Eobard just wants to destroy it because he wants it. He's hoping to destroy it enough. Destroy the timeline enough. The timeline will reset and his reality will come back into existence.
Well, I know, because obviously what it looks like, because the Our Man that covered Legends was from Our Man's future. So obviously, Our Man wasn't supposed to die. But because Eobard said, we found the future that he changed. So again, I love how in the time rates are. I mean, it's like, oh, that's only guard time.
Well, and this again is this time shift, and this is the problem with Eobard. Probably is hoping for many universes there, and it does appear that they're not working on a many universe. Essentially, change the timeline, you're never going to get the timeline back. Even if the problems that he's caused, and kills his mother himself, which I have in season 1, because he said his mother was killed, now he became the impossible. So you eventually go back and kill his own mother.
This episode had
mark my word,
a lot to it. It's like I said all last season. The show will be better once they have more preparation. And this is embracing its comic book roots, and I'm curious. It's open. I mean, of course, being time travel is a few possible, but overall, I say good marks for this episode. What do you think, Char? What are your final thoughts?
I think it's a decent episode. I think that they have to start being honest about what their budgetary limitations are. You're going to throw out a CG anytime you do because it's too expensive. Then you don't have a real it's like they say. You can have a reason to have Stein not be able to be in the field because they're separated. You have Rome in a moment. There's no reason not to have them into the field. There's no reason for them not to stay. So every time you're budgeting, saying, well, really do that on the budget, it's like, well, then now it's time for some missions. That's why I've fought for Solomon Grundy because he's a guy in gray makeup. And you get a big guy, you get the guy who played the Mountain in gray makeup. I'm sure he can. Grundy hates Super Friends. You push these characters who don't need the CGI, and you're going to do better. But they keep on wanting because what it's worth. What Dare does was that a lot with just coordination. Now stunt coordination isn't cheap, more cost effective than CGI, and you can approach because you can put a character with superhuman strength and just have them. See, I'm superhuman, bulletproof, firing blank bullets at him. Human, I am cheap. But every put in these crazy, it's hurting the series because they're not spending on other than production time and advanced location shoot. Instead, they're putting it into this whiz-minute that now they have to explain why they're never going to use it.
I'm looking forward to next month. That's all for this week, folks. You find us on social media on so many different outlets. Of course, check out the Facebook page, of course, the Twitter feed. Now, be tuned next week, unless the Reverse Fast comes back and kills us. So, a racist podcast all the time.